Today we're going to look at the rumor if a manual transmission is really coming to the Toyota Supra. We're going to dig into that, see what's fact, what's fiction, and kind of try to figure that out. I've got some information on that. And we've also got some information about a Tesla Model 3 that has now gone off-roading with a lift kit. It's crazy. You don't want to miss this episode. The Tesla Model 3 obviously is a very popular car. It's doing very well, specifically in North America, and it's got the famed autopilot. Clearly this is a car that is designed to work on paved roads and in the city, and perhaps even for some long distances as well. Well, there's some people that like to take them off-road. So this is a company that is actually not based in the US, which is a little bit surprising to me. They are based in Germany, and they have done a whole number on the Tesla Model 3, and they have produced an off-road kit for it. So the Tesla is not exactly an off-road warrior. It sits fairly low, but more significantly, the battery pack sits very low in the car. So you need to protect that against rocks and water and other things that might have an incursion event into the battery. So this company called Delta 4x4, they're based in Germany. They have produced a lift kit for the Tesla Model 3. So right now, this lift kit gives you a 35mm lift. That's about like 1.4 inches or so. But obviously the Model 3 wheels and tires are not exactly designed to go off-road either, so they've got a wheel package, which they also offer, which gives a total of 40mm clearance. So now we're talking about a 1.6 inches roughly of additional clearance over the base Tesla Model 3. So how does this work? They don't actually swap out the suspension like you might expect with some other type of off-road kits with lift kits. This is mounted between the original shocks and the body. So they're not changing the suspension, and they say everything you need is included in this kit. So this kit comes complete with everything that you need. The kit is about 480 euros, and if you want their special off-road wheels, which look pretty beefy and apparently they're pretty strong, those are an additional 2,500 euros. The company says they're very proud of this, and they should be. Now, Electric's take on it is this: it looks like a ton of fun, but keep in mind it's also going to badly affect your efficiency and therefore your range. Ooh, scolding those people who might want to modify their Tesla. How terrible is that? Tesla should be kept pure, the way they came from the factory. Yes, well, that's my take on Electric. I would definitely appreciate it if you give this video an early thumbs up. It helps the algorithm distribute the news to people who want to see it. Also, let me know down below if you're interested in t-shirts from RevMatch. I've got this purple one, which is actually, there's only a couple of them right now. I've also got quite a number of black ones that are available, so let me know down below if you're interested in this, and I will link the website. Next up, we are going to talk about a Supra and a manual transmission and see if these things actually go together. This news has been out for a couple of days and I've seen a lot of posts about it, so I thought I would sort of address it and give you my take on this. There's a Japanese magazine called MagX News, and they claim that the upcoming Supra, the Toyota Supra, is going to get a manual transmission. So I covered this a little bit in my last video on the Nissan 400Z. You could take a look on that, but let's go into it more in depth here. So a quick bit of backstory. The Supra is obviously a very niche automobile. In 2020, it was in fairly short supply. It was actually difficult to get a hold of. I had trouble getting the color that I wanted. I flew out of state to buy mine. So at the end of 2019, they had sold about 2,900 of these total. And remember, the Supra was available only for the last 6 months of 2019. And now in 2020, we've got basically the first 6 months behind us. And with the pandemic, Toyota has sold about 2,500 Supras this year. These are all 2020 models. So the total volume so far is about 5,363 2020 Supras. Right now, just for your information, there's about 400 2021 Supras on the ground. They were shipped over from Europe before the factory shut down due to the pandemic. The next shipment of 21 Supras is probably going to be in the fall. So this is not a big volume car. It's clearly a niche car. I think that's the way that was actually intended to be marketed as. Now, Toyota has always said, even before the Supra was released that they're going to make continual improvements and updates and special editions every year. So this is not like a big surprise. And we know that this year for the 21 model, we have some improvements. The suspension has been updated, and more significantly, the engine is the B58 engine, which is the same one found in the BMW Z4. So they revised it. It has a 6-port head on it instead of 2 ports on the exhaust side, and it makes supposedly about 47 horsepower more. I actually did a comparison video between the 2020 and the 2021. That's right over here if you want to check that out. It's not exactly the results that I expected or anybody else did. Now, Toyota also wants to keep the sales at about the same level where they are now every year, perhaps improve them a little bit, but this is not going to be a super large volume model. I don't think that's going to happen. During the early days of the Supra back in like 2018, when they were prototyping it, when they were testing it, there was a number of spy photos that came out that showed the Supra with a manual transmission. So we know in fact that Toyota was testing this out prior to the launch of the 2020 model. So there's rumors that have been floating around also for a couple of weeks that there will be a GR-MN version of the Supra coming out. GR is the brand that Supra is under. There's also the GR Yaris, which we don't get in the US unfortunately, but we are going to get the GR Corolla. GR stands for Gazoo Racing. It is their new sub-brand, I guess, kind of like BMW M. So this rumor floating around is that the S58 engine, which is currently available in the BMW X3M and the X4M, which makes in the range of 500 horsepower, the rumor is that engine is going to find its way into an upcoming GR-MN version of the Supra. And this engine is also going to be found in the upcoming BMW M3 and M4. I did a video on that as well. So what's my take on the rumor that we're going to get a manual in the Supra? So European Auto Group, which is a company based out of Texas, did the world's first manual swapped Supra. I saw it at SEMA. I checked out the car. It's actually pretty amazing. It's a very, very good swap. They've got a whole series of videos on them doing the swap. And I know for a fact that Toyota is aware of European Auto Group. I know they have seen the videos. I know they are, I would say, interested in the videos. So Toyota hasn't exactly stopped thinking about a manual for the Supra. So we know that Toyota was developing a manual before the launch of the 2020. We know that Toyota does special models every year. And we also know that in Europe, the BMW Z4, which shares a platform with the Supra, in the 4-cylinder version of the Z4 in some parts of Europe, you can get a manual transmission. So it's not entirely off the table at all. And in fact, I think it's kind of likely, I think it's very possible they will do it, but I will say that if they do it, it's probably going to be a limited production run. Right now we've got the first year, the first edition was a limited production, of 1,500 units. Right now in this year, in the 2021, we have a limited A91 edition, that is 1,000 units. So I think if we're gonna see a manual, I think it is actually going to be fairly limited. And here's, I think, some possibilities of what it might look like. First, I think it's going to be limited to a US only run. And the reason behind that is the updated B58 engine that we get in the US, which is in the Z4, that engine is not going to make it into European Supras. And the reason for that is most likely they have stricter emission controls than we do in the US. And when you mate a manual transmission to the B58 engine, or any engine for that matter, most countries consider that a new drivetrain and they require additional emissions certification for that. So when you mate a manual transmission to the B58, BMW almost certainly has to get that recertified under whatever country's emission laws they want to sell it in. So the US is the biggest market for the Supra right now. It makes sense for them to make it US only. Here's the possibilities. So we could get a manual 4-cylinder Supra. That's a possibility because we already know that exists in Europe. We could get a manual made it to the current B58 engine. That's a possibility as well. Or here's the most spicy and the most tasty possibility would be a special edition with the S58 engine and a manual transmission. And why is this possible? Because we know that this combination is already certified for US emissions because BMW is making the M3 and the M4 with a manual transmission. It's going to be available in the US with rear-wheel drive. So all Toyota really has to do is sort of get the approval of BMW, if you will, to take this powertrain combination and put it in the Supra. Now, if they do this, we're talking about 500-ish horsepower, we're talking about a lot of torque in that ballpark as well, and we're talking about most certainly a very expensive special edition that would probably start, maybe around $70,000, maybe even north of that. I really don't know. That's just speculation on my part. So I rate this rumor of a manual transmission as pretty plausible. I think we're going to see some version of a manual transmission perhaps next year. I think there's a good chance we're going to see it. By the way, if you liked this video, I've got a couple more up on screen. Please subscribe. My name is Eric, and I will see you very soon. And coming up pretty soon, I've got a review of the Honda CR-V Hybrid. It's quite good.